We have this from SCNR. Trump calls for NPR defunding after senior editor releases scathing op-ed. They are a liberal disinformation machine. And so we were just now talking about a Hollywood film about a civil war. But this is another component of it's fairly insane to try and parse through the news when it is all a lie intended to manipulate you into falling in line behind authoritarians. And so you had this, let me just read this. Senior business editor Yuri Berliner wrote in his op-ed that an open-minded, curious culture prevailed throughout the network early in his career. Those said NPR's direction in recent years didn't accurately reflect on America. Berliner noted the network overwhelmingly employed registered Democrats, noting not a single registered Republican was present at NPR's Washington headquarters. The senior editor went on to claim NPR's top network executives had pushed for the outlet to transition their messaging toward a consistently progressive liberal framing. There's a story, and we'll get into a second, about a guy named Dexter Reed. You guys see this one?
No.
This is a guy who reportedly opened fire on police, striking a police officer, shooting 11 times, and the police responded, killing him. I say reportedly because it's reported in the news. There's video of the shots and the cops running and screaming, and then, them yelling shots fired and stuff like that. And the way the media frames it is they do not report that the guy opened fire on the police until the bottom of the story.
Wow.
So you Google this, and it's all these news outlets being like, black man shot at 96 times, and they show a picture of him wearing his graduation robes. And I'm like, why not just show a picture of him wearing a t-shirt? Like, why this graduation photo? It's all framing. So their goal is to effectively create another George Floyd scenario. The crazy thing is, this guy who died, I was watching the news the other day, and there was like a shooting in Philadelphia happened, and I was like, and? It's like, why is that news? Now they're like, police stopped a guy who opened fire on them and they shot him. And I'm like, how is that news? I was night crawling in Chicago a few years ago, and there was like 7 murders in an hour, and cops were shooting at guys. And I'm just like, how is this news? For some reason, these woke leftists in corporate press all got the memo, and maybe that's the case. So now you have this story with NPR where this guy's basically saying, yeah, Democrats took it over, turned it into a propaganda machine. Trump now says no more funding for NPR, a total scam. Here's what I love. Is NPR funded by the government? Well, they say, no, it's not. NPR doesn't get public funding. No, what happens is Congress authorizes funding for some secondary organization who then transfers funding to NPR, and that's how it operates. So in line with the movie Civil War, where the president thinks journalists are the enemy, you get the left likely very much going to push a similar narrative now with this. But this is just a bigger component of what we already knew. I mean, this country is... I don't see how, based on things like this country ever comes back from oblivion.
Well, based on what?
That the media is intentionally lying to everybody.
There's
and
no
the fact
back.
that Donald Trump says, make it stop, has them depicting him as a fascist who murders people in a film.
I don't think there's any going back. People that want to go back, that ain't the right way anyway. I just don't want to turn it into I don't want it to become so passively fascist that people just don't exercise their free speech. That's what I'm concerned with. I want to maintain people's willingness to speak out against the powers that be, because that's how innovation occurs. And that's why the United States is so great in the first place, and why people came here and wanted to take it over, is because we said, no, you're allowed to say whatever you want. You can't come here and stop people from doing that.
But at the same time, I agree with you, but we should be able also to call out lies from newspaper and journals that keep spreading a narrative that are totally baseless. And we have seen it with Donald Trump in many occasions, just spreading blatant lies. I mean, I feel, of course, involved into that because I've seen my character completely assassinated in the news just to get indirectly to Donald Trump, right? It was convenient to say at the time that one of his advisors married a Russian spy. That was completely so crazy that, having the possibility to call out this outlet and even win a defamation lawsuit is now so remotely impossible, just because attacking the fake news is like attacking the media. So, it's another type of dictatorship on the other side. We should respect, I agree at a certain extent, that could lie. People should be free to talk and even say lie. But let's keep our freedom to object this lie, prove them wrong, and having them correct their lies, which we don't have right now.
Were you able to sue who was it that said you were a Russian spy?
Well, many outlets. One was like Medium with this crazy guy that actually caved in a libel lawsuit recently with another person involved in the Russia hoax, and he won actually, and he was banned by ever publishing anything ever again. I'm not making his name not to make him famous here because it's actually really like a fringe wannabe journalist. But, many other outlets picked up from this, including, the Observer and something, just major outlets. And the point is not even like corroborating what they say, it's just like putting the headline in the front to build up a narrative. It was never about me. It was just about the Donald Trump campaign that was allegedly colluding Russians. So I understand the feeling of Donald Trump calling out those liars. I understand you when you say we should limit our going after these people at a certain extent because we should protect freedom of speech, right? And I agree. But I think this is so normalized to lie against a political opponent or political target that we should definitely be able to correct it. We should shift back to some sort of accountability when you lie recklessly. And Donald Trump has been the target of all that. And people like me decide, just try to get to me, to get to his advisor, George, my husband at the time. And now look at, here we go again, 2024, the same mantra, Russia, 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 white supremacists, and a bunch of other things that are thrown there just to make up a narrative.
There's like this saying, look for forgiveness rather than for... what is it? Permission. Yeah. Go ask for forgiveness later rather than ask for permission first. And
Terrible.
I think news organizations have been functioning like that, and that they'll just print something that's wrong, and then when they do, they'll be like, "Oh, it was wrong. Sorry, we'll take it down."
That's not it. It's,
They'll just apologize.
news organizations will intentionally lie, make millions of dollars off the lie, then wait a week, issue a retraction, and make a few thousand off the retraction. When they run an article with ads on it, views are views. Doesn't matter. So they can run an article and just say a whole bunch of nonsense. And then if it's sensational and they make money off the ads, good. And then when someone's like, you better retract it, they go, okay. And they put up another article retracting it and make money off that too.
But I'm with you. I mean, slander, libel, those are legitimate things. This new media environment where a random nobody can slander you, and then a news organization can pick it up and be like, well, I mean, we saw it there, so it's not like we made it up. And then who do you sue in that case?
Exactly.
Technically, the loudest mouth, I think, is usually the one that gets the lawsuit. But then what do they pin it on their sources and be like, well, we just got it from that small outlet. What do you know how that works?
Well, that's how they do. That's a vicious machine, so I read it there, so I picked up this article. I don't have to justify why. Actually, they're proposing the same content. You should go to the source and then prove. And then when you are a public person in a certain way, you have much less protection on your side. So legislation should change a little bit. But on the macro picture, I believe Donald Trump. When I read these truths, I thought I relate to, because think about this man. He has a machine of the judicial machine from his side, and then you have the media machine colluding to create the same narrative. So he has 1,000 indictments. Think about Jane Carroll, based on baseless allegation again, and media covering it in a certain way. And here we go, the narrative is built upon. Everybody's trying one thing to avoid Donald Trump to win the election again, and that's a fact. Or delegitimize him once he's in power. And everybody can see that, even liberals, Have you ever seen so many forces against one man, and why?
Not in American politics. Not like this, no.
Yeah. I mean, and you can even try to attack the corporate press. I mean, even if you're Trump, he just sued George Stephanopoulos for lying about him on air. Who knows where that's going to go? And it's anybody's guess once it gets into the topsy-turvy legal system. Pretty much anything can happen, I think. Even if you're Donald Trump and can afford the best lawyers possible.
I'm not too familiar with NPR. It's called National Public Radio, but it's privately funded.
Yeah, well, part of what happened here, according to this guy's op-ed, is that things changed when a guy named John Lansing took over as CEO in 2019. And then when the summer of George Floyd happened, the top-down edict was, we have to get at this systemic racism problem. I mean, and then from there, It was just framed that way moving forward, and then everybody else had to fall in line. And I imagine that's pretty much what happens in most of these corporate press newsrooms. It comes from, some deranged CEO that takes over and has, kind of goofy ideological views on things, and they just mandate it top down.
Maybe it should, when Trump's lawsuit should just sue them and make them take national out of their title, because they're not.
That's a brand name.
Yeah, like if I call my company the Federal Armory
Express.
Federal Express, they had to change it to FedEx because federal, it wasn't federal. Yeah. And like if I call my thing like if I call my company like the legitimate American government, or like people be like, well, it's not. You can't like call your private companies. There's certain things like, or if I'm like want to call it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Like the United States Congress. Like if I want to make a company and call it the United States Congress, they'd say, no, you can't name it. So calling it the national, it's not national. It's a private. I'd love to get their stock.
That's a very good point.
Who owns the company? It's owned by National Public Radio, Inc. And who owns that? And where the stock all comes from. Because I read about it a couple of years ago, and I don't have the data here, but I remember seeing that only a little bit of money comes from the government, and all the rest was coming from private organizations.
Where did you hear that they changed their name from Federal Express because they were forced to?
I just remember them changing it to FedEx.
Yeah, they weren't forced to do it. You're allowed to say Federal. They just they created a brand name.
They called it the Federal Reserve, and it wasn't even a federal organization. So it is pretty deceptive to call your company federal if it's not federal, and call it national public something if it's a private company. That's kind of crazy.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.